The Buddha's forgotten instruction on right effort. One, hook, bleeding feet. A monk once practiced walking meditation so intensely that the skin on his feet cracked open and bled. He paced back and forth for hours, day after day, pushing harder and harder. And still, enlightenment didn't come. He was ready to quit everything. Walk away from the monastery, walk away from the path, go back to his old life. Then the Buddha showed up at his door and asked him a single question about a musical instrument. That question became one of the most important meditation instructions in the entire Buddhist canon, and almost no one in the modern world has heard it. Two, the missing instruction. Here's something that should bother us. Over 90% of people who start using a meditation app quit within 30 days. More than half of all meditators abandon the practice entirely within 2 years. And the ones who stick with it? After 5 months, the average session has dropped to less than 90 seconds. These aren't lazy people. Most of them genuinely wanted this to work. So what went wrong? If you look closely, almost everyone fails in one of two ways. Either they try too hard, white-knuckling their way through sessions, getting frustrated when their mind wanders, convinced they're doing it wrong, and eventually burn out. Or they don't try hard enough, sitting passively, waiting for something to happen, getting bored when nothing does, and eventually drift away, too tight or too loose. And most people spend years bouncing between the two, never realizing there's a third option. 2,500 years ago, the Buddha gave a specific, practical instruction for exactly this problem, an instruction that addresses both failure modes at once. He didn't say, try harder. He didn't say, let go. He said something far more precise, and he explained it through the story of a monk with bleeding feet and a lute. Three, the lute. His name was Soṇa, and before he became a monk, he was known for one thing: he was soft. From a wealthy family, so delicate that hair grew on the soles of his feet. The kind of person you'd least expect to find bleeding on a meditation path. But when Soṇa ordained, he went all in. He chose walking meditation as his primary practice and pushed himself with everything he had. Back and forth, hour after hour, until the walking path was stained red. His feet split open. And still, nothing. No breakthrough, no insight, no liberation. So one night, alone and exhausted, Soṇa made a decision. I'm one of the most energetic disciples the Buddha has, and even I can't break through. What's the point? I should disrobe, go back to my old life, and at least do some good with my family's money. AN 6.55. Now, here's where the story turns. The Buddha, staying on Vulture Peak, somehow perceived what Soṇa was thinking. And in a single evening, he appeared before him. No lecture, no reprimand. Instead, he asked a question. Soṇa, before you became a monk, you were good at playing the vana, weren't you? Yes, Lord. And when the strings were too tight, did the vana sound right? Was it playable? No, Lord. and when the strings were too loose. No, Lord. But when the strings were tuned to the right pitch, neither too tight nor too loose, then was the vana in tune and playable? Yes, Lord. In the same way, Soṇa, excessive energy leads to restlessness. Too slack energy leads to laziness. Resolve upon a balance of energy. Attune your faculties to that. AN 6.55. That's it. That was the instruction. Not try harder. Not let go. Tune. Soṇa did exactly that. He adjusted his effort, found the pitch where energy was neither wound too tight nor hanging too slack. And within a short time, Soṇa Kolivisa, the monk with bleeding feet, attained full awakening, complete liberation. Birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, the task done. How is he? AN 6, 55. From bleeding feet to arahantship, not by pushing harder, not by giving up, by tuning. Four, the four dimensions. So the Buddha said, tune your effort. Beautiful metaphor. But a metaphor isn't a method. If you sit down to meditate tomorrow morning, what does tuned effort actually look like? The Buddha didn't leave that to guesswork. He laid out a precise formula, and it starts with a word that might surprise you. One generates desire, endeavors, activates persistence, upholds, and exerts intent. That's the canonical definition of right effort, the sixth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, SN 45.8. Notice what comes first. Generates desire, not suppresses desire. Generates it. You have to want this. You have to care enough about your own mind to work with it skillfully. That wanting, that purposeful, directed desire, is the engine that drives everything else on the path. But desire without direction is just intensity. And we've already seen what raw intensity did to Soṇa's feet. So the Buddha gave that desire four specific channels, four dimensions of effort that work together like the four hands of a gardener. Dimension 1, prevent. The gardener builds a fence. You guard against unwholesome states that haven't yet arisen. The irritation you don't need to pick up. The craving you don't need to feed. Not by force, by paying attention to what you let in. When you see something, hear something, encounter something, you don't grab onto it. You meet it clearly and let it pass. AN 4.14. Dimension 2. Abandon. The gardener pulls weeds. When unwholesome states have already taken root, resentment, obsessive worry, cruelty, you recognize them and let them go. Not by fighting them, by seeing them clearly enough that they lose their grip. AN 4.14. Dimension 3. Develop. The gardener plants seeds. You actively cultivate wholesome states that haven't arisen yet. The qualities that lead toward awakening. Mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, tranquility, concentration, equanimity. You don't wait for these to show up on their own. You create the conditions. AN 4.14 Dimension 4. Maintain. The gardener waters what's growing when wholesome states have arisen. When your mind is clear, concentrated, settled. You protect that. You don't get complacent. You don't immediately chase the next thing. You stay with what's working and guard it with careful attention. AN 4.144 dimensions, not 4 steps. You don't finish one and move to the next. They operate simultaneously, moment to moment. Right now, in your life, all four are available. There are things you can prevent from entering your mind, things you can release, things you can cultivate, things you can protect. And here's what's remarkable. Neuroscience accidentally mapped this same cycle inside a single meditation session. Researchers tracking meditators' brains found a repeating four-phase pattern. Focus, then the mind wanders, then you become aware it wandered, then you shift attention back. Over and over. That moment of becoming aware. That's dimension 2, recognizing what's unwholesome. That moment of shifting back, that's dimension 3, developing what's wholesome. The wandering itself is what dimension 1 trains you to prevent. And the stability you build over time is dimension 4, maintaining what's working. The cycle is the practice, and every single round is an opportunity to tune the lute. Five, the science of tuning. In 1990, a Hungarian psychologist named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi published a finding that changed how we understand human performance. He discovered that people do their best work and experience their deepest satisfaction in a very narrow channel. When the challenge is too high for their skill, they get anxious. When it's too low, they get bored. But when challenge and skill are precisely matched, something clicks. Time disappears. Self-consciousness drops away. Effort becomes invisible. He called it flow. Too much challenge, anxiety. Too little, boredom. Just right, peak performance. Sound familiar? Too tight, restlessness. Too loose, laziness. Tuned, music. Csikszentmihalyi arrived at the same insight the Buddha gave Soṇa. 25 centuries later, through laboratory research instead of a lute. And here's what makes flow especially interesting for meditators. Flow feels effortless, but it isn't. It involves intense engagement. The effort is simply so well calibrated that it doesn't register as strain. That's not the absence of effort. That's effort at its highest level of skill. Now, a brain imaging study took this even further. Researchers measured neural activity in meditators at 3 levels: beginners, intermediates, and long-term experts. What they found was an inverted U-curve. Beginners showed low effort and poor attention, no surprise. Intermediates showed high neural effort and good attention. They were working hard and it was paying off. But the experts? The experts showed less neural activity than the intermediates and better attention than anyone. Less strain, more stability. Not because they were doing less, but because they had learned to tune. Years of practice had taught them exactly how much effort to apply and exactly where to place it. The lute was in tune. The music played itself. This is what right effort points toward. Not maximum force, not minimum force. The kind of force that comes from knowing your instrument so well that every adjustment is precise. And that precision, like any skill, develops over time. You don't start there, you practice your way there. As one teacher put it, you don't have to pull hard either. Think of milking a cow. Too rough, and the cow kicks. Too gentle, and nothing comes. You find the touch. You learn the pressure. That's not something anyone can teach you in a sentence. It's something your hands learn by doing. Kicks. Why the West forgot? So if this instruction is right there in the canon, a specific practical teaching with a memorable metaphor and a dramatic story, how did we end up with just sit and let go? Here's what happened. When mindfulness went mainstream in the West, it got extracted, pulled out of the Eightfold Path like a single thread from a tapestry. Mindfulness was repackaged as a standalone technique, something you could learn in an app, practice in 10 minutes, apply to stress reduction and corporate productivity and better sleep. And that's not entirely wrong. Mindfulness is powerful. But in the Buddha's system, mindfulness is factor number 7. Right effort is factor number 6. It comes before mindfulness, because effort is what activates mindfulness. One canonical text puts it this way: right effort, together with right view and right mindfulness, runs in circles around every other factor on the path. It's not one item on a list. It's the engine inside every item. MN 117. Strip that engine out, and what are you left with? Mindfulness without the skill of effort, which leads to exactly the 2 failure modes we started with. People either grit their teeth through meditation or they float passively, waiting for peace to arrive on its own. Neither works, and nobody told them why. One prominent scholar called this McMindfulness, a fast food version of a practice that was designed to be a complete meal. And one of the most experienced translators of the Pali Canon was even more direct. The Buddha never taught bare attention. What he taught was ardent, mindful, alert, and that ardency, that quality of care and precision, is right effort by another name. But here's what matters most. The fact that right effort was forgotten doesn't mean it's lost. It's been sitting in the suttas for 25 centuries, waiting. And the most encouraging line in the entire canon might be this one: abandon what is unskillful, monks. It is possible to abandon what is unskillful. If it were not possible, I would not ask you to do it. AEN 2.19. Read that again. The Buddha is not offering a hope. He's stating a fact. You can do this. The capacity is already in you. What you need is not more willpower. It's a better method. And that method has 4 dimensions: a gardener's hands and the tuning of a lute. Seven, close, the tuned lute. So what does this look like? Not in a sutta, not in a lab, but in your life. Some days your energy is high. The mind is sharp, restless, wants to sprint. Those are the days to ease off the strings slightly. Sit a little longer. Let the breath be gentler. Don't chase intensity. You'll overshoot. Other days your energy is low. The mind is foggy, heavy, wants to sleep. Those are the days to tighten just a little. Shorten the session, but sharpen the attention. Sit up straighter. Keep your focus precise. Don't coast. You'll drift. And some days, rare days, the strings are already close to pitch. You sit down and something settles almost immediately. On those days, your only job is dimension 4. Maintain. Don't fiddle with what's already working. Guard it with quiet attention, the way you'd cup your hand around a candle flame in the wind. Think of a swimmer. On strong days, she swims farther. On tired days, she swims less, but never drops her form. The distance changes. The skill doesn't. That's the practice. Not a fixed amount of effort applied blindly every day. A living calibration. Responsive, sensitive, precise. And this brings us back to Soṇa, a monk so soft that hair grew on his feet, who pushed so hard those same feet bled. He didn't fail because he lacked commitment. He failed because he hadn't yet learned that effort is a skill. And the moment he learned to tune, not push harder, not give up but tune, he didn't just improve, he reached the end of the path. Right effort is what made that possible. Not as one factor among 8, but as the engine inside all of them. When right effort activates right mindfulness, and right mindfulness steadies right concentration, and all 8 factors reach critical mass, that's when something extraordinary happens. The tradition calls it stream entry, and it changes everything. That is the next video.